Welcome back to episode number 6 of the Triple Threat Podcast. Today, we are going to be coming up with one player for each team that can make sense in a trade. But first, we have some breaking news. Daryl Morey has been hired by the 76ers after leaving the Rockets this offseason. CJ, what do you think about this?
I like how he's not afraid to make a move. I like how he uses some aspects of data analytics within the game, but I also think that you can't solely rely on that if you're trying to build a championship team.
I agree with you on that. I think that Microball. Do you think he's going to try to bring Microball back, or do you think that he's going to commit to building around Simmons and Embiid?
I mean, the team makeup is much different now in Philly, and you don't trade Joel Embiid for nothing. So
yeah,
he's going to try to adjust with what he has. But they're definitely going to make a big trade. Sixers are.
I agree. I think Ben. This is the year for Ben Simmons to make a major leap. If he doesn't, then I don't know what to say. I think he needs to start shooting the jump shot this season for the Sixers to have some success. But anyway, for this episode, we're going to be coming up with a player for each team that could be a possible trade target. And CJ, I heard you had a trade proposal in mind that is kind of separate of this, but you just wanted to bring it up.
I saw this on Instagram. All right, so it's between the Rockets and the Suns. It's Russell Westbrook, 2 second-round picks, and Daniel House for Devin Booker, a second-round pick, and Cameron Johnson.
I would not do that if I'm Phoenix.
I know. Like, who would trade an aging Russell Westbrook who has shown he's declining and can't shoot?
And a terrible contract.
For Devin Booker, a second, and a
young
player, and Cameron Johnson, even though he's not very young.
He can shoot. Yeah. At least he's like control. He's cheap. He's shooter, and he's definitely more valuable than Russell Westbrook right now. At least the packages, not Cameron Johnson alone. But for this little topic we have today, do you guys want to go by like conference and like the best, the worst teams of the conference, or do you guys just want to go off the dome?
I separated the teams by division, but
I did the like best record to the worst record in each conference.
You can just name. You're talking about for the trade targets?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, you can just name teams. I have them all written down.
All right. So for the Milwaukee Bucks, starting with the best team in the NBA by regular season record, I had Victor Oladipo as their trade target. I think that the package they need to move is Eric Bledsoe and DJ Wilson, or they go in a first-round pick, or they go with Bledsoe and DiVincenzo. The reason I have this move for the Bucks is I think they need to show Giannis that they want to win, and Oladipo at least adds a potential All-NBA guy if he can get back to his healthy form, which I don't think is a guarantee to happen. But if it can happen, it'd be a lot more convincing for Giannis to say. But I'd like to hear your target, CJ.
For the Bucks, I have Kyle Lowry. He's a obvious upgrade over Eric Bledsoe, and I think establishing a big three with Milton and Giannis and Lowry would be better than trading like Bledsoe and Milton to get like a second guy. I think Kyle Lowry showed he's really good. He's past playoffs, and it'd be good.
Jacob, what do you think about the Bucks?
I mean, they need to show Giannis that they can win now, so it doesn't go, say, to Miami or something like that. But yeah, they do need to ship off Eric Bledsoe's contract. It's a really bad contract.
It's not horrible. It's like $16 million, isn't it?
Yeah, but
so
he's getting old and he's declining. So
isn't only 1 year left on it?
No, they extended him for 4 years.
Oh, well, that is bad. But on the Raptors, they should see that they're. I don't think the Raptors are in contention anymore. Can we agree on that with their current roster? Especially
I think
Ibaka possibly leaving and
Van Vliet.
Yeah. Brand, if Fleet leaves, they're gonna be in trouble.
So
They're basically saying right now, I think what they're going to do is they're going to bring back Ibaka on a long 1-year deal. They're going to see if they can pay Van Vliet enough to where they retain the salary or the space to sign Giannis next offseason if he wants to go there. But other than that, I think the Raptors are kind of peaking as it is right now. And especially if Giannis doesn't come, I think that they're going to start going in the downhill unless Pascal Siakam makes some major steps.
Kyle Lowry has 1 year left on his deal, and
30 million, yeah.
loading him right now makes sense to me.
It does to me. I've got him to go into a different team. But let's stay with the Raptors, the 2 seed in the Eastern Conference. I have them acquiring Steven Adams. I didn't really love anybody going to the Raptors this offseason. I thought it made sense for them just kind of like to keep their same core because they're just going to maintain space to resign to go after Giannis. But in case Marc Gasol leaves and Serge Ibaka leaves in free agency, I thought that Steven Adams made sense because he could be a starting center for you. And as long as they bring back Chris Boucher, they'll have some good center minutes. And Adams will be a good screen setter. He'll be a solid rebounder. He'll finish at the basket, and he'll be a good teammate. I think that Oklahoma City is definitely going to be willing to sell. And the Raptors have some intriguing young players, even if they're not the greatest. And they're older, like Matt Thomas. Terrence Davis is kind of a question mark because of the case that he got into today.
Not going to play another minute for the Raptors, that's for sure.
But, yeah, I agree with you there. At least he shouldn't. But I think that Steven Adams is a decent fit for Toronto.
Nice. Jacob, you agree on that?
Say it again.
He said Steven Adams.
I mean, they do need a big man, especially if Ibaka leaves, but I just don't see anyone going to Toronto.
Yeah, that contract's a bit steep. For Toronto, I had John Collins. He's on a cheap contract still. Last year was rookie deal before he had restricted free agency. And yeah, I don't know how that would work now because Terrence Davis is one of the best assets. He's probably in trouble and will no longer be with the team. So I don't know how they get John Collins, but he'd be a really good upgrade for
Yeah. Yeah, I think they could definitely run some small ball 5 if they get Collins. I don't know if Atlanta's going to move him, and I don't know if Toronto has enough anymore. I mean, they've got guys that are solid players like Norman Powell and OG Anunoby, but I don't know if those guys are going to get you John Collins. But let's move on to the Celtics. I think for the Celtics, I think this is a pretty obvious one. It's been rumored for a couple of years, but I have Miles Turner. I think CJ, as a Celtics fan, probably has a more creative trade than me, but that's kind of like the well-documented trade history is Turner because his ability to stretch the floor, and the Celtics need a center, and Indiana's got 2 bigs, and they need to move one, and Miles Turner's the more likely one to get moved. That's just bonus's extension. So I've got Miles Turner going to Boston. CJ, who do you have?
Yeah, I have Christian Wood because the Celtics have all these mid-draft picks from this year and all these smaller contracts they could use to match a trade because Christian Wood's not making anything right now. And yeah, he'll be restricted after this year, but getting him is an instant upgrade over Daniel Theis. He showed he's not very good in the Eastern Conference Finals, but Christian Wood, he can defend the rim, shoot, athletic, and he's everything you want in a center. And I think he's legit.
Isn't he a sign-in trade guy? Isn't he about to be a free agent this year, and then you have to like pay him? Or is he a free agent next year? I think it's this year, but I'm not 100% sure.
Might be. It's complicated. It might be team option. I was thinking it was like a team option. They were gonna accept it, but even if he's restricted, a sign and trade would work. I'd even be willing to give up Smart possibly. Like if the periods don't make sense, but maybe like Wood and like the Pistons draft pick this year for the Celtics picks and Smart, something like that. But let me look that up right now.
I'm surprised that you'd be willing to move Marcus Smart because I think he's a key part to the Celtics.
Oh yeah,
and,
I'm strong. I feel
And we
like
know you love Marcus Smart after
Yeah.
the Marcus
Oh,
Smart versus
really?
Paul George.
that just shows you I value Christian Wood. Like maybe we could work out Daniel Tice and other people, but I feel
Sure.
really good about Christian Wood.
They do have young players and a lot of draft picks, so it would make sense for them to do that. But yeah, if the Pistons want Smart, then yeah, I think I'd command Smart because he's probably better than any of those guys, and he's definitely a flippable asset if you trade for him because he's on a great contract and he's a good player who's a great defender and he's an even better shooter this season. So I think Marcus Smart makes a lot of sense for them.
Only Christian Wood is a unrestricted free agent.
Yeah, so he's gonna get a lot of money this season, especially from a team like the Pistons who are paying nobody. So
Yeah, I think he's worth $20 million a year.
yeah. So the next team, the 4th seed in the East, who might have traded with the Celtics with the Miles Turner trade, but I have the Pacers going after Nemanja Bjelica. I think it's an interesting fit because Sabonis officially gets to play the 5 for them, and Turner's gone. And Bjelica shoots 41% from 3 to Turner's 35. It really helps with the positional flexibility. You get Sabonis to be a full-time 5. Bjelica steps in. He's a starter full-time, and he's shooting efficient from 3. And another thing that I noticed about Bjelica is he averages about 6 rebounds a game, which you think that he wouldn't be the best rebounder, but Miles Turner at the same time averages about 6.5 rebounds a game, so you're not losing that much. So I thought that Bjelica made sense, and the Kings don't really have any direction right now, and if they can get any kind of assets like a young player or a first-round pick, I think you have to take that if you're the Kings.
I have. Wait, who are we on?
The Pacers.
Pacers. Okay, I have Gordon Hayward. It's pretty obvious right now that they're targeting him. The fit would be good. I'd want either Sabonis or Turner in exchange for them as a Celtics fan. But I see Hayward as expendable. Other people want him back in Boston really bad, but I don't think there's much of a need for him. I think center's a bigger need.
Yeah. Jacob, which big do you think that Indiana should keep? Do you think they should keep Sabonis or Turner?
How old is Sabonis and how old is Turner?
They're about the same age.
Sabonis' contract's a little bigger.
And he just went to the All-Star game though, so
I'd probably keep Sabonis, but not by much though. It's kind of I think it'll come down to really like who's hot and who's not. Like if Turner's absolutely just destroying everybody in the league, then I guess you have to go over. You have to.
Jacob, what do you mean? If they're getting traded, they're getting traded this offseason.
I know.
yeah.
What do you mean if they're hot?
I think it means like trade value. Their trade value's
They
up.
have enough trade value. Like if they have a really good couple of weeks before the trade value, they're going to go up.
What do you mean really good weeks? They're getting traded in the offseason.
CJ, I mean, if they have a really good start to the season or end to the season.
Are you talking about from this previous season?
Yes.
Okay, I don't think they're valuing it just off their end of their season. I think they're looking at long-term potential and immediate fit. But Sabonis probably has more trade value and is probably the better player. So I like Miles Turner though. So
It depends on the scheme. It really depends on the scheme. But going on to the 5 seed who swept the Indiana Pacers this season, we have the Miami Heat. And honestly, I was in the same boat with the Heat as I was the Raptors. I really didn't think any move made sense to make because they need to preserve their cap for a big fish in 2021 with Giannis and Paul George and Kawhi and all these guys. But the guy I have for them is Neil Gallinari. He was he was attached to them in the trade deadline, and they almost made a move for him. They could not work out a deal for an extension. But I think that Gallinari makes sense because now you have the COVID salary, and he might only want to win your deal so it could retest his market. And maybe if you're Oklahoma City, you sign and trade, and you get an asset like Derek Jones Jr. and you take back Kelly Olynyk, or you get a second round pick from the Heat. I think you try to get an asset back. I think Derek Jones Jr. can be a solid player with his athleticism. But I think Gallinari is a fit for the Heat, and I think he can start over Jay Crowder right away. And I think they can let Crowder walk if they land Gallinari this offseason.
okay, the Heat they don't have any glaring weaknesses, in my opinion. And I'm not sure if this guy is a free agent or if he is under contract, but Chris Boucher, one thing they lacked, I felt like, against the bigs was rim protecting. Laughing out loud for Chris Boucher, he is underrated, very underrated. He can shoot, block shots, he can handle. If he wasn't like 26, dude, everyone would be hyping him up like Bull. But make sure you buy his Prism card when it comes out. First year Prism. Looking.
I mean, he's got a lot of potential, but he is a free agent. I think he's probably not going to get that much money, but I don't know. I think he'll stay in Toronto unless some team is willing to overpay him because they think he can be really big.
He'd be a good 4 for the Heat in case they were playing the Lakers in the finals, per se. Like, he's not the most muscular guy, but he definitely can.
He's quicker. Yeah, he's quicker.
I'd rather have him out there than Duncan Robinson.
What'd you say?
I'd rather have him out there than Duncan Robinson, especially like in.
Well, I think I'd still rather have Duncan Robinson's floor spacing.
Who?
We saw that in Game 5. Chris Boucher.
CJ, you're dumb for that one.
You're uneducated. You don't know who it is. You're uneducated.
All I know is that Duncan Robinson shoot threes. I don't know why I stuttered there. Shoot threes for spacing.
Recency bias.
Recency bias. So then what are we going off of, CJ?
I'm basing it off of their performance throughout the entire season, not just the playoffs.
Well, Duncan had a really good regular season too.
Already had a really good regular season anyway.
Well, you're only talking about him so highly is because he was in the finals. If Chris Boucher went off in the finals, you'd be talking about him.
Well, you brought up Duncan Robinson, to be fair.
Well, yeah, he's a defensive liability.
He's got 6'8" in a wide frame. If he can work on his defense, he can be capable.
He gets shifted every single time. It's funny.
It depends. It depends. If you're the Heat and you have 2 non-shooters and Jimmy Butler and Bam Adebayo out there, I think you need Duncan Robinson in the court a lot of the time because they have 2 unwilling 3-point shooters. Unless Bam Adebayo or Jimmy Butler magically starts taking threes again next season, then I don't see a starting lineup without Duncan Robinson in it. Even with Tyler Hero's emergence, I think that Robinson will still start. But let's go to the Sixers. They've got a lot of things to do about this offseason, but I didn't pick a big name player for them. I picked a shooter because that's what they need, shooting and floor spacing. I picked one of my favorite players. I picked Doug McDermott. They need his 3-point shooting. He's at 43% from 3 this season on 10 points per game. He had 10 points per game. It's really simple. He can come off the bench or he can start if they wanted to run Harris at the 4 and McDermott at the 3. It would just help them really badly because they need shooting.
Yeah, I would say a smaller name player like that, but the Daryl Morey effect. I have James Harden. You've heard a little bit about it. Houston, they're in an awkward position here. If they could get back either Joel Embiid, Ben Simmons, and future picks, as well as maybe young players like Matisse, you have to at least consider that. And I think pairing Harden with an Embiid, that was pretty scary because you only need like 2 main guys to score the ball for you, and the rest just be able to shoot threes, defend. So,
Jacob, what do you think about James Harden going to Philly?
Like that's a big trade that's what would have to happen.
It's Daryl Morey. You never know what to expect.
But I mean, it's probably possible though, because they do need shooting because they have no floor space in Philly whatsoever.
They have Shake Milton. He's pretty good.
Yeah, he's decent, but I mean, do they need James Harden? Yeah, but I feel like they'll have to give up a lot to get him. But they do have Embiid and Simmons, and those are two really good guys to trade for.
James Harden. Daryl Morey has guts, and James Harden is his guy. So I don't rule it out, but I don't know. I think that it'll be a tough sell to Tillman Fertitta and the Rockets that you just left me and you now want to trade for Harden back. And, I don't know if they're going to give him a discount, if they're going to charge him up or what's going to happen there. But I think that the relationship dynamics makes it a little bit harder. But if Harden goes to Philly and if they have Embiid, I think they can stop. I mean, they can start being a lot better. But let's move on to the Nets. They've got a big offseason. And I think that the guy that I picked is Drew Holiday. They need a third star. He's a two-way complementary player who doesn't need the ball. And he's a great teammate, which might be good for the guys in the locker room that have to deal with Kyrie and KD because they're not the best communicators and vocal leaders. But I've got Drew Holiday.
See, I don't see the point of a Drew Holiday signing because of just how much he needs the ball to score. He's not the best three-point shooter. Kyrie's gonna have it a lot, so I have them trading for Bradley Beal. Instant title contenders if this happens. Well, they're already title contenders without him, but they'd be more so favorites. From three, they'd be very good with Kyrie. They probably wouldn't keep Joe Harris, but Kyrie, KD, Bradley Beal. You couldn't stop them offensively.
They absolutely need Joe Harris to come back just for his spacing, and especially for a guy that doesn't need the ball. But
Yeah.
I think Drew Holiday can play off the ball, and I think he can lead the second unit kind of. I don't know if Dinwiddie or LeVert will go out in that trade, but I think that he can help with those guys and just to give them creation all 48 minutes of the game, which is something that's pretty rare in the NBA.
Well, his impact, I think it's going to be small compared to the price you're going to pay. Whereas Beal, his impact will be felt pretty
Immensely.
pretty much.
Yeah. Anyway, let's move to the Orlando Magic, a team that's been stuck in the middle for it seems like forever. I didn't have them acquiring a veteran guy. I've got them getting a young guy, and that's Nickeil Alexander-Walker. I think that it's no guarantees with him playing minutes for the Pelicans next season, especially when you've got JJ Redick, Drew Holiday, if he's there, and Josh Hart in their rotation. But I think that Alexander Walker's an intriguing piece that Orlando should bet on because they need some sort of scoring at the guards, and Fournier is getting stagnant. Markelle Fultz hasn't taken the leap that they hoped he could, especially with his jump shot. DJ Augustine is just a placeholder. He's not really anything special. I think that Nickeil Alexander-Walker has some potential, and the Magic should try to gamble on that.
I have them getting DeMar DeRozan just in an attempt for them to move more sort towards like the middle of the conference, opposed to barely making the playoffs. DeRozan's going to be a free agent after this year, so they'd get off their books. Maybe they could work out some sort of sign and trade with Fournier to go to the Spurs as well as other mid-level contracts. So, it's not a very impactful move. I don't think DeMar DeRozan's that good anymore, but it's a salary potentially.
Yeah, he can at least score the ball, and Orlando needs scoring. And there's been some rumors of like DeMar DeRozan for Aaron Gordon or DeMar DeRozan for Vucevic or somebody for DeMar DeRozan going to Orlando, and it makes sense. But I do have DeRozan going somewhere, just not to Orlando. But let's move on to the next team, the 9th seed in the East, the Washington Wizards. Obviously, their star player, Bradley Beal, is involved in trades. But I have them getting a smaller guy because he's a three-point shooter, and the Wizards have one of the worst defenses in the NBA. But the guy that I have going there is Tony Snell. It's not a fun trade at all.
What?
But he shot 42. He shot 42% from deep, and he's a decent defender, and the Wizards have no defenders. And they can just salary match with Jan Mahimi. I doubt it's going to actually make you cost anything. Jan Mahimi doesn't play in the first place. It just makes sense to get something that can be decent, and at least Snell can shoot three and play defense.
I have Clint Capella, big that you can throw lobs to and stuff. I think the Wizards that are coming in the season underrated with John Wall, who supposedly looks better now. So, Thomas Bryant, he's not going to give you much. Wagner, not much. So, if they want to make the playoffs and somewhat contend for like a middle seed, I think trading for Clint Capella would be pretty logical.
It'll be interesting to see if Bertans comes back and if Hachimura takes the next step.
I think Bertans is gone.
Yeah, I think he might get pressed out of the range, especially when they have so much committed to Beal and Wall.
Yeah.
And even Jan Mahimi is making like 15 million. That's why I didn't really see them making any major moves because they probably couldn't afford it. But interesting with Capella. I didn't think he was going to get moved because Atlanta just traded for them and he hasn't played a game yet, and they probably want to see how he fits with Trae Young. But let's move to the Hornets. The Hornets, another team that's always stuck in the middle. Obviously, they had Kemba Walker for a long time. He's gone now. Terry Rozier's in. They drafted PJ Washington, who had a solid rookie season. But the guy I have for them, and he's a center. They might take James Wiseman if he falls to them. I don't know if he will, but I have Andre Drummond, who's on an expiring deal, going to Charlotte. I thought it was a surprise that they didn't trade for him originally from Detroit because of how little it cost. And now that he's on expiring and Cleveland doesn't want to pay him a max deal or anything close to it because he wants that, I think that it's realistic for Charlotte to swap like Bismack Biyombo and a second round pick and maybe a young player to, or like Jalen McDaniels to the Cavaliers, and maybe they contend for an 8 with Drummond. It just seems like something that the Hornets would do.
I have Tobias Harris. They've lacked a small forward for a while now. Nicholas Batum has been hurt or done nothing for like 4 years now. And is he a free agent, do you know?
Next year. He's gonna accept a $28 million player option.
Yeah, they can dump him to Philly, and then Philly could do whatever they want with him. But I don't see Philly keeping him. But yeah, Tobias Harris, they'll make them more competitive, and a small market team can't really sign any free agents, so they have to use that cap somehow.
You think they'd take Harris even though he's making $35 million? And also, like, they have Bridges, who's not that bad.
Well, he's more before, I think.
I mean, Washington. I guess PJ Washington can run some small ball 5. It's not the most outlandish thing.
I don't like Zeller at the 5.
Yeah, I don't like Zeller or Bismack Biyombo or Billy Hernan Gomez. They're all kind of meh.
Yeah.
So let's move on to my favorite team, the Chicago Bulls. There's not really any glaring moves that they can make. They're young and they're committed to playing guys like Wendell Carter Jr., Larry Marketing, and Kobe White, and seeing if Zach LaVine can do anything. So the guy that I picked was DeAndre Hunter. I'm really hoping that somehow they can convince trade back from 4 to 6 and get 2 young players for the price of 1. Obviously, Hunter was drafted number 4 overall last year. He didn't have the greatest rookie season, but he can play defense and shoot the ball, which is something that the Bulls can use with Kobe White and Zach LaVine's lackluster perimeter defense. I don't know if the Hawks are willing to give up on Hunter just yet after only 1 season, but I think it makes sense for the Bulls.
I have OG Anunoby. I think the Raptors will do whatever they can to keep their cap down in order to trade for Giannis. And OG is going to be a free agent after this year. Or he could be restricted this offseason. But I don't think they're going to try to sign him to anything long-term. But he fits a need for the Bulls as well as the Raptors potentially tearing down their team with just players leaving and players aging. So I can see it.
Yeah, I like Anunoby. I don't know if Toronto will move him. I think that they probably view him as their starting small forward for the next 5 or so years to play with Siakam. And if Giannis does come there, then maybe they end up trading Anunoby later on down the road. But he'll be a restricted free agent when Giannis is a free agent, so they could just renounce his rights or sign and trade him somewhere to get some kind of assets.
He's restricted right now, I'm pretty sure.
No, he's got 1 more year. He's got a team option, and they're going to pick that up.
Okay.
So,
do you see the fit though with the Bulls? I see.
Yeah, I do. Perimeter defense, 3-point shooting. It's pretty simple. He's got athleticism. But let's move on to the disastrous New York Knicks. They don't have anything going for them. There's no superstar free agent this year. Anthony Davis is not going to go there. Fred VanVleet fits there, but I don't know if Fred VanVleet's want to go to the Knicks after being with a championship kind of organization with the Raptors. But the guy I have them getting is Nicholas Batum, because they need to do the smart thing and have the Hornets pay them a draft pick to take Nicholas Batum's $28 million. And if they can get a Hornets draft pick, that's great because they're probably going to be bad. And if you can get a draft pick for 1 year, 1 year of Nicholas Batum, then that's a no-brainer for me in the Knicks.
I think that's really unrealistic. They're not going to throw pick just for Batum, who I think his contract ends after next season, right?
Yeah, but if Michael Jordan and the Hornets want to make a move to contend and get Drummond and another player, maybe they have to do that.
Michael Jordan should be smart enough to know that they can't contend right now. But
there's only like 4 teams with cap space. It's the Hornets, the Hawks, the Pistons, and the Knicks. So I picked Batum to the Knicks.
okay, I have Sabonis to the Knicks. Not really sure why, but I think he fits there better than Julius Randle. One of the
Julius Randle.
one of the worst players in the NBA, if I'm being honest. But he just seems like a guy who could be a really good contributor to the Knicks and do everything that he needs to do.
He can definitely put up some all-star caliber numbers. I don't know if he's going to save the Knicks, but he's definitely solid. I think that if they're going to make a blockbuster trade, it's going to be for Westbrook just because he'll bring fans to Madison Square Garden. But
They're going to get one from the draft.
Who knows what happens. But moving on to the Pistons were another team I considered for Nick Batum. But I actually have them getting Derek White from the Spurs. I thought it made sense because San Antonio's got a couple of point guards. They've got Murray and White. They've got Keldon Johnson, Lonnie Walker, Bryn Forbes. They've got a lot of guys there. Patty Mills is going to be there for another year. And I thought that maybe they capitalize on one of their assets and they ship him to Detroit. Maybe they get Luke Kennard back or even try for Sekou Doumbouya. I think Derek White makes sense as a starting point guard if they strike out on Fred VanVleet. And he's cross controllable and he's pretty young. And I think he's a solid fit.
I have Markelle Fultz. I don't think the Magic are going to want to pay him whatever he's going to want as a underperforming point guard. But I think he fits Pistons timeline a little more than Derek White. The potential's still there for Markelle, but he just hasn't been able to produce. And low risk, high reward, I think, for the Pistons.
I agree. Going to the Hawks, and we'll finish up with the Cavs after the Hawks. But going to the Hawks, the guy I picked for them was DeMar DeRozan. I don't really love anybody going to the Hawks. They've got a lot of cap space, but there's no real star available. And I'm not sure the Hawks are ready to make a mega deal where they trade Cam Reddish, DeAndre Hunter, Kevin Huerter, and their number 6 pick. I don't think they're ready for that kind of deal. I don't think they're that good yet. But I think 1 year of DeRozan gives them some experimenting. He brings them a veteran leader who's won before in the playoffs. And DeRozan's at least going to score the ball. He's going to play make. And he'll at least take some pressure off of Trae Young. And Trae Young will have a little bit more open shots because of DeRozan's ability to drive to the basket, although they probably shouldn't be rotating after Trae Young in the first place. But I have DeRozan. I don't love the fit. I think that he's not going to cost that much because it's going to be 1 year for San Antonio, and he's going to get flipped if he picks up his player option. But I've got DeRozan going to Atlanta.
I have Marcus Smart and sort of the Marcus Smart for John Collins sort of swap type of thing. Marcus Smart fits really well with Trae Young in the backcourt because Trae is not the best defender, but offensively, I think they'd work well off each other. And yeah. What are your thoughts? I turn around.
I like Smart with Trae Young. He's a physical defender, and he'll help out Trae Young, who was one of the worst defenders in the league. You pair him with one of the best defenders of the league in the backcourt. He's gritty. John Collins makes sense for Boston, especially if they move Gordon Hayward. I don't know if Collins is good enough to be a small ball 5 because he's not really much of a shot blocker, but he is a good rebounder. So it's pretty interesting for Boston. I think the only concern there is the shot blocking. But with Robert Williams and maybe even Taco, if he could take a step, they can have some sort of shot blocking. But let's finish with the Eastern Conference. I've got with the Cleveland Cavaliers, I have LaMarcus Aldridge. The Cavs, they're stuck in the middle. And the trade I have with them, and this will be revealed later in my Spurs trade, is just to get off of Kevin Love's contract. I think Aldridge is 2 years, while Love is 4. And maybe Love is probably better than Aldridge at this stage, and he can help the Spurs win if they want to go for it. Aldridge is sort of an expiring, and you let him play, and you see what happens, and see if you can get a pick for him at the deadline.
No need to take time on this. I have them getting Terrence Ross because he can score.
Yeah, sounds good. All right, let's move to the Lakers. For the Lakers, I have Evan Fournier. I think he's a good starting shooting guard, and he could replace Danny Green in the starting lineup, who is not the greatest after his first season with the Lakers. And Fournier shot 39% from three this season with the Magic and averaged like 18 points per game. I think that gives him a very solid option and very under the radar. And I think he's a solid player that can complement LeBron and Anthony Davis.
Okay, so is one of JaVale McGee or Dwight Howard, are they free agents?
Yeah.
They both are. McGee's got a player option with $4 million, which he'll probably pick that up because he's not going to get more than $4 million.
I have them getting Zach Collins. Young shot blocker. He can shoot a little bit. Very underrated.
What are they going to give up?
we
Kuzma?
don't, we don't have a big
Horton, Tucker. I don't know. I don't think Zach Collins' trade value is that high.
I would keep him, but if I'm Portland, at least. Jacob, is there anybody that you want the Lakers to trade for as a Lakers
Well,
fan?
we need a point guard or a shooting guard. I don't want to say what the media says, but I mean Derrick Rose would be better than anything. You know, he is getting older. Better than Danny Green at the moment.
Derrick Rose just takes away shots.
Huh?
There's some stretches with Derrick Rose. As much as I love him.
He has his dumb moments, but we mostly need a point guard because Rondo's a free agent. Caruso's I think a player option or a free agent. We have most of our guards are just most of our main role player guys are free agents, but mostly I think we need to get a point guard because you got AD coming in the center, you got LeBron who can play 1 through 5, so you can fill in at the 4 or the 5. So we just need a 1 or 2, which I think someone said it's Evan Fournier. He'll work good, and I think Derrick Rose will work well.
A little too expensive, I think.
Rose or Fournier?
Fournier.
Well, he's on a if he picks up his $19 million player option, which I think is very possible. I think they can match Danny Green's salary, and I think maybe if you put in Kuzma, it works out. Although I don't think I'd give up Kuzma in that situation. I think you can give up one of your bench guys like Quinn Cook. I think you can throw him in the deal, and that'll get it done salary wise. Maybe you have to throw in a second round pick, but they're both streaky shooters. Fournier can create a little bit more off the dribble. Danny Green, obviously a standstill 3-point shooter. Who used to play a little bit of defense, now maybe not so much. But
the thing is, does he have to create that much though with LeBron and AD having the ball so much?
But to be in Danny Green's entire career, he hasn't really been a creator. Granted, he's played with great teams his entire career in San Antonio and Toronto. But I don't think Danny Green would create his own shot anyway. We saw him when he tried to go to the basket and shoot a floater in the finals or take a pull up mid range. It wasn't very pretty. But let's move on to the other early team, the Clippers. They've got a big offseason. I've got them getting Kawhi Leonard's former teammate, Kyle Lowry. I think this is the place that makes sense for him the most. A 1-year deal. You go for it. If it doesn't work out, Kawhi and PG are probably gone. But Kyle Lowry, veteran point guard. He's got a lot of tenacity. He's a playmaker. Probably a better defender than Patrick Beverly, even though Beverly made all NBA defensive teams. But I think Kyle Lowry is
get rid of Lou Will. Lou Will's just bad.
He had a bad stretch. He's a good player.
He's pretty bad in the postseason.
Yeah, postseason Lou Will is almost like pandemic.
Yeah.
I have for the Clippers. I have Kemba Walker. I think both teams, Celtics and the Clippers, are both pretty fed up with Paul George and Kemba Walker's performances. And, Kawhi said he wanted a point guard, and I think Kemba fits really well there with Kawhi.
Yeah, I still don't think Kemba's going to be moved after year 1 on the max deal. But
they could also put first with it too, so that the Clippers need. So
yeah, they need some kind of assets. But let's move on to the team that beat the Clippers in their dramatic fall, the Denver Nuggets. I've got them getting Bradley Beal. I think that's a huge addition for a team, especially if they want to win now. Beal's still young, and he can still play for the future. I think you do have to give up Michael Porter Jr., which kind of sucks for them because he had a breakout bubble. But there's always going to be some kind of concern with him with his back. There's obviously a possibility that you don't even get Bradley Beal strictly because of Porter's injury history, especially with his back. which I'll be curious to hear what you guys think if he's going to be able to stay healthy. But I think Beal makes a lot of sense for the Denver Nuggets.
I have John Collins. I didn't mean to include him twice, but I think he fits really well, especially with Grant on his way out. You only have to give up Bol, some other young players. Probably not Morris, but I think John Collins help them get into their top 2 or 3 seeds.
They're already top 3, but then again, the Warriors are coming back, so we'll have to see what they are at full strength. Let's go to say that again. Let's go to the Rockets. The Rockets, obviously a popular team, and I have them getting a center. I have them getting Rashawn Holmes from the Kings. They can match the Newell House money, and he's at least a solid young player that the Kings could be interested in, and he could be attached with some seconds maybe to make it work if you're Houston. Holmes gives you a center who can still switch a little bit, and he gives you some sort of rim protection at the rim, which we saw was very needed. Even with PJ Tucker's physical abilities against Anthony Davis, they needed some rim protection.
I have Montrezl Harrell in a sign-in trade. I think he fits their small ball concept with PJ Tucker. He'd be an immediate upgrade in terms of offensively, but defensively he has his weaknesses. But Rockets would be scoring at will if they had Montrez.
I was going to say, I don't love Montrez strictly because of his defensive side of the ball, but it is a possibility if it makes sense to them. If Harrell can step it up defensively and bring the same kind of energy he had before the bubble as a rolling big to the basket and running the floor in transition. But going to the Thunder, the Thunder are interesting. We don't really know if they're going to contend or tank at this point. I think they're going to be tanking towards the bottom of the league next season. And I just put young players and draft picks. Guys I gave as examples were like turnaround guys like Kevin Knox, Dennis Smith Jr. If a Chris Paul trade happened to the Knicks, I think that those guys, maybe if they have some freedom to play under like OKC's coaching staff, although they don't have a head coach yet, but they have some freedom of not playing under New York's bright lights, and maybe they can take the next step forward for OKC. I don't really think they're going to make any trade to make them better, and there's no real glaring young player that they're targeting, but I think those guys make sense.
I have Blake Griffin if they want to contend. People think it's pretty obvious that Chris Paul is getting traded, but I'm not so sure. And getting Blake Griffin would help them push for continue to be a middle playoff team, especially with teams like the Warriors coming back. He's a good player too, very underrated.
The issue with Blake Griffin is him being able to stay healthy. Obviously, he's older. He's had 9 surgeries. The athleticism is gone, but he still has some flashes, and he's been a upgraded playmaker and 3-point shooter, so it'll be interesting. And also, he went to University of Oklahoma, so maybe he brings some fans to the stands.
Their team all
they're bad.
Team, don't forget.
Yeah, don't get me wrong. He can play when he's healthy. It's just the amount of injuries he's had. He's a risk. And OKC, if they make that move, he is only on 2 years, so I don't mind that move for them. But he's not the best move. But going to the 6th seed in the Western Conference, the Utah Jazz. This is my Chris Paul destination. I think it's a sleeper Chris Paul destination. I think the trade that makes sense there is swapping Mike Conley and a first-round pick or a young player for Chris Paul. And obviously, there was a lot of Rudy Gobert rumors getting moved, and I thought that this is their way of saying that we're going to go for it. You trade Conley, who's expiring now. You get CP3, and at this point, CP3 is probably going to opt into that $45 million. But at that point, you would have the option to have Gobert and have CP, and you go for it. And if it doesn't work, if you want to bring both those guys back, you can. If it doesn't, then you can let them both walk at the same year, and you can start fresh with Donovan Mitchell. And Chris Paul and Donovan Mitchell have a good relationship, and maybe he can take Donovan to the next level in terms of efficiency and defense. But I'd like to hear what you guys have to say.
I have PJ Tucker. Tell me who the last power forward the Jazz have had. I could not tell you.
Bogdanovich.
Isn't he a small forward?
he's their 4 because they run Ingles or Royce O'Neal at
See, that's
the 3.
a joke in terms of defensively. Getting a guy like PJ Tucker, he instantly impacts your defense as well as he can hit open shots. And if the Jazz want to keep contending, then it's a good move.
What the Jazz did this year was they surrounded Gobert with 3-point shooters, which boosted their offensive rating. But because some of them weren't the best defenders, their defense went down. They need to find a good way to keep both having the efficient 3-point shooter, and PJ Tucker is a fit. I just don't know if Houston will move him. But if it does, it would be interesting. Going after them, one of the teams that I also had trouble making a move for, who's a team I think that should stand pat. We've got the Dallas Mavericks. I've got them going for JJ Redick. He just makes sense as another shooter for them. If they have Curry, Hardaway, and JJ Redick, even if they bring back Trey Burke, I think that you match DeLon Wright's salary and Justin Jackson, 2 guys who weren't really playing the most minutes in the playoffs for this season. And I think the Mavericks have faith in Jalen Brunson being their backup point guard, and Trey Burke had a good bubble, and I think that they'll be able to bring him back. And Justin Jackson kind of fell out of the rotation, and he's probably not much of a rotation player anyway in the first place. So I've got them going for another shooter to Sean Luka with and JJ.
I have Robert Covington. He'll be able to run the small 4. I like Porzingis at center more than power forward because he's a mismatch nightmare for center. And just that wing defending duo with Finney Smith and Robert Covington, I think that'll be really effective.
Yeah, I think he's definitely a great defender. I don't know if they'll be able to bring him in from Houston because they gave up so much to get him. And honestly, I think I'd be saving my assets just in case I strike out on Giannis, because then maybe I make the trade for the superstar if Bradley Beal's suddenly available, or sign and trade for Paul George is available or something like that. Otherwise, I'd be waiting right now if I'm Dallas. I don't really want to make a move that makes me pay anybody. So let's go to the 8 seed in the West. Let's go to Portland. Portland was one of my favorite ones. I think I've got them getting Gordon Hayward. This is a huge move for them. And if they can get Gordon Hayward, it'll put them back to where they were in 2018, around the middle seeds in the Western Conference instead of being a 8 seed. I think that Gordon Hayward in their starting lineup gives them another level of playmaking. And if you bring back Carmelo, your starting lineup is Dame, CJ, Hayward, Carmelo, and Nurkic. And you've got shooters like Gary Trent off the bench. You've got Anthony Simons potential, Ronnie Hood.
Who would they give us?
Zach Collins, rim protector, who is good when he's healthy. They have first round picks, and they have Trevor Ariza is expiring, who shot 40% from 3 with them, and it gives you more cap flexibility for the Celtics. Gordon Hayward.
We need Nurkic if we're giving Nurkic.
I don't think they're giving up Nurkic, but I think Gordon Hayward makes the most sense for them because he can take them to the next level.
I think that trade's very unrealistic. We're not going to give Zach Collins up just to be another like Robert Williams or whatever. We're looking at legit big men. So if we're going to trade Hayward, I think. For the Trailblazers, I have Aaron Gordon. I don't think he's the most expensive player in the world, especially with contract-wise. You can give up Rodney Hood and Zach Collins, those bench guys that you were talking about, for Aaron Gordon. He'd be an instant impact. But to say Gordon Hayward for them, I couldn't see it.
I think Hayward makes. Zach Collins gives you 7 points per game, 7 rebounds, 37% from 3. I think he'll obviously take a more expansive role if he does go to Boston. But it's a move that was brought up on social media. I don't know if it makes the most sense, but I think Gordon Hayward makes the Portland Trailblazers a heck of a lot better, especially when they can switch everybody. And if Melo can remain a good shooter and is okay with being the 4th option, they've got a lot of flexibility. And especially if guys like Anthony Simons and Gary Trent Jr. can take the next step, then Portland will be a bigger threat.
How are they going to match salaries for Hayward without giving up Nurkic?
Ariza, Collins, Hood, and then one of your younger players that are pretty cheap.
Take on all those bones, bro.
Hood gives you rotational minutes. So does Ariza.
We're not taking those bombs.
I mean, Hayward's expiring. I mean, he's not going to be that valuable. If you can't find a trade partner, it's realistic. Collins gives you some youth, and I think the Celtics are actually interested in him.
If we're trading Hayward, we're trading him for a legit big, not Zach Collins.
We'll see. But let's go to the Grizzlies. The Grizzlies, I have Otto Porter Jr. We'll kind of speed round until we get to the Warriors because most of these teams are kind of meh.
Mm-hmm.
But I have Otto Porter Jr. because he's a good shooter. He plays defense, and they can match the Gorgie Jang and Kyle Anderson contracts, which weren't really that good. As long as you give Chicago some sort of future assets, it'll help out both teams there. Who do you have for the Grizzlies?
Kevin Herter, good shooter, good bench piece. I don't think they're gonna want to pay him. The Hawks won't. So
yeah,
good trade.
Suns, I've got Dennis Schroeder, backup point guard, 6-man. The OKC wants to back out from contending. He gives them a lot of playmaking, scoring off the bench. Pretty simple.
I have Paul Millsap. They have no power forward, and he'd be a good fit. But I don't know if Denver would want to move him.
He's going to have a $30 million team option, which is definitely going to decline. It'll be interesting to see if they want to bring him back at a cheaper deal for they're just going to let him walk. But Spurs, I'm going back to my Cleveland thing. Kevin Love and Marcus Aldridge. If they want to win, Love is probably better than Aldridge right now. The only sucky thing is that you have to take on a couple more years of contract, so maybe you try to get a pick back. But Cavaliers are probably going to be asking for a pick from you, so it'll be interesting. Love is solid, not the best player in the world, but it's just a swap.
I have Robert Williams. You can't have Jakob Pertl as your 5. Like, dude's horrible.
Yeah, they ran Aldridge, Trey Lyles. They don't really have 5 right now.
You have a great opportunity to develop, and he's probably top 5 most athletic players in the league.
Yeah. The Kings, I don't really have anybody specific. I've got young players, but I have Romeo Langford as one of the guys. I see them maybe swapping Rashawn Holmes. He's a asset that the Celtics could be interested in. 6'11" big. He's going to be able to stretch the floor a little bit. He can switch a little bit, and he's had a breakout year, and he's pretty cheap. He's around $4 million. So I thought it made sense for the Celtics to go after him. It's not the biggest move in the world, but I thought Holmes made sense.
Yeah, for the Kings, this might be a little surprising, but I have Rui Hachimura. I like Bagley better at the 5, and having a core of Fox, Rui, and Bagley for the future, I think that's a decent young core to start with.
I agree. I don't know if the Wizards will move Hachimura, but let's go to the Pelicans. I've got Mo Bamba. I think that rim protection with Zion and being able to stretch the floor makes sense. Maybe they don't love Jackson Hayes in Orlando. If they're going to commit to Vucevic for a couple more years, maybe it's time to let Bamba go. And that's why you swap with Nickeil Alexander-Walker. But I've got Mo Bamba going to NOLA.
I originally actually had Mo Bamba to the Celtics, but for the Pelicans, I have Monte Morris because they have no one behind Lonzo Ball at PG. Monte Morris, he'd be good at getting the young guys involved, and he'd be good at getting the ball to Zion, so it may be good.
Especially if they move Drew Holiday, because usually they have at least one of Holiday or Alonzo on the court. But if one of those guys are gone, then Frank Jackson is your backup point guard, which I don't have the most confidence in. So we'll go to the Timberwolves. I've got Gary Harris, 3-and-D wing. He's some shooting. You're buying low on him. Maybe Denver's willing to get out of his contract, and they'll swap you for like James Johnson, who's just an expiring. But I've got Gary Harris. He's not the most exciting player, but that's who I have from Minnesota. They need some defense.
I don't know what I was thinking. I had Devin Booker. I don't know how they'd get him without giving up Cat or D'Lo, but I had the 2. They'd give up D'Lo first. D'Lo, Culver, some first. It'd be enticing, but probably wouldn't happen.
Yeah, I think their best asset's the number 1 overall pick, but I still don't think that gets you Devin Booker.
Yeah,
right now.
I think they're pretty set. I think they love LaMelo Ball for some reason, but they're a boss. So.
All right, let's go to one of the most intriguing teams in the list, and the team we will end on. We've got the Golden State Warriors. I've got Aaron Gordon. I think that he is in the last stretch 5. If it's him at the 5, or if it's even Draymond at the 5, he's athletic. He can switch. He's a rim runner for a Steph pick and roll. I think Aaron Gordon makes a lot of sense for Golden State, and I think he just barely misses out on their trade exception. But if they potentially convince Orlando to take Wiggins, I think it makes a lot of sense, and they make the pick with 2, or they even trade back.
Okay, I know Isaac's not gonna think this is realistic, but I have two. One for before the draft and after the draft. Before the draft, if the Bucks feel like they can't surround Giannis with a good core to win a championship this year, and the Warriors feel like this is their year to win it all, I can 100% see them trading for Giannis Antetokounmpo. These GMs they're more willing to deal than you think, especially with a 1-year deal left on Giannis and the fact that he's probably not going to be there next year. It'd be smart for Milwaukee to just move on and cut their losses and get what they can for him. But if they cannot trade for him before then I have Bradley Beal. That'd be one of the best shooting teams in history, along with the Warriors team with KD. And I don't think it would take too much. Wiggins and a couple of future first-round picks. I don't even think you'd have to include the number 2 overall pick. I think getting Wiseman would be a good addition. But I see them trading for a big-time all-star, not some guy like Aaron Gordon, because the Warriors know they're not getting younger. So I think this is their time to win.
Even if they get Beal, they'd still be able to use that number 2 overall pick to trade back to get another player, or even draft Nico Okongwu and another player. But Jacob, any final thoughts for the Warriors?
Well, I think they need more of a big man. I was lucky thinking Mo Bamba. I know that's a stretch.
They're not going to do anything if they get Mo Bamba.
I know, that's why I said it's a stretch. Listen.
It's their time to win now.
I mean, they got a couple of years.
You're going to bank on Clay playing in there.
Clay's. I know Clay and Steph are getting up there in age, but I just feel like they need more of a big man. But if they'll change, if they get Wiseman, they don't need a big man. Then I'll give CJ to maybe. I say Bradley Beal would be a good pick.
Yeah, I agree with you guys. Well, that was our episode of having each player or having each team target one player and see if they go to each team. But thank you for tuning in to episode 6 of the Triple Threat Podcast. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and comment some ideas of what you think we should draft next time, or if we should bring in a special guest, see if we can get any contacts or see what happens. But thank you for tuning in, guys.